I remember the day my father looked me in the eye and raised his belt with both hands. His face was red, his breath loud and fast like a wild bull. I was curled up on the floor, my stomach already swollen. My arms were up, trying to shield my head. But his voice rang louder than his hits. "You shameful little devil! How dare you bring disgrace into my house?" I cried, not because of the belt, but because of his words. Because I needed him to save me. I needed him to believe me. But instead, he beat me like I was the monster. And the worst part? He didn't know that the real monster, my own brother, was watching from the hallway. He didn't stop him. He never did. I screamed that day, louder than I ever had before. Not just from pain, but from the heartbreak that comes when the person who's supposed to protect you becomes the one who breaks you. And that was the day I stopped being a child. I was 12 when it all started. We lived in a small, broken house at the edge of a dry, quiet town. It had one bathroom, 2 bedrooms, and peeling yellow paint on the front porch. My mother had died 2 years earlier from sickness. After that, the house turned cold. Daddy worked all day and came home smelling of oil and sweat. He barely spoke. And when he did, it was usually a warning or a shout. My older brother, James, was 16 at the time. He was tall, with quiet eyes and heavy hands. He used to hold my hand when we walked to school. He used to make me laugh. But something in him changed after Mama died. He grew quiet. Mean. Controlling. It started with little things. He would stare at me too long. Tell me not to play with boys. Take away my books, saying they were nonsense. He would sit too close, brush against me on purpose. I didn't understand at first. I thought maybe I was imagining it. But one night, when Daddy wasn't home, James came into my room. He sat on the edge of my bed, silent for a long time. Then he said, "You're the only girl left in this house. You have to listen to me now." I nodded because I was scared. He leaned in close, and I smelled the sourness of his breath. "You won't tell anyone what I do." "Not Dad. Not anyone. If you do, they'll blame you." I didn't understand what he meant until he touched me. And from that night on, I was never safe again. At first, I tried to avoid him. I locked my door. Slept under the bed. Hid in the closet. But James always found a way in. He was careful when Daddy was around. Polite. Sweet. He would serve dinner, smile, even help with the dishes. Daddy thought James was the perfect son. But at night, the mask came off. Every time I tried to tell Daddy something was wrong, he would wave me off. "You girls are always too emotional," he'd say. "James is a good boy. You should be more like him." One day, I built up the courage. Daddy was outside fixing the car. I came to him, shaking. "Daddy, James, I couldn't say the words." He wiped his greasy hands on a rag and stared at me. "What is it, girl?" "He comes into my room at night," I said, voice trembling. "He touches me, Daddy. He makes me." Before I could finish, his face turned stone cold. "You lying little witch," he growled. "You're trying to ruin your brother's life." "No. I'm not lying." He dropped the rag and stormed toward me. "You jealous or something? Want all the attention? You're making up sick stories because you're a spoiled brat." I froze. My hands were shaking. My voice disappeared. And in that moment, I saw it in his eyes. He wasn't going to save me. He didn't believe me. That night, James came into my room like he always did. But something in me changed. I didn't cry. I just stared at the ceiling and waited for it to be over. Weeks passed. Then I started getting sick in the mornings. I felt dizzy. My stomach hurt. I couldn't eat. Daddy thought it was the flu. But I knew. I was pregnant. And the only one who could have done it was my brother. I kept quiet, hoping maybe it would go away. But my belly grew. When Daddy noticed, he demanded answers. I cried and told him the truth, again. I told him James had done it. And this time, he didn't just yell. He beat me. Harder than ever before. He dragged me to the floor and whipped me with his belt, over and over, screaming things I'll never forget. You little slut. You brought this on yourself. You ruined this family. He didn't even look at James. James stood there in the corner, calm, arms crossed, like he had done nothing. And Daddy, my own father, chose to believe him. That night, I lay on the floor, bleeding and alone. I couldn't cry anymore. All I could do was whisper one thing to myself, over and over. This can't be my life. I wanted to run away. But I had nowhere to go. No one to call. No mother to hold me. No father to protect me. Just pain and silence. But something inside me refused to die. Even when I wanted to. Because deep down, I knew. This child growing inside me didn't deserve this. And somehow, I had to find a way out. To protect it. To survive. To escape them both. And that's when I made the hardest decision of my life. I waited until midnight. I packed the tiny bag I kept under my bed, just a toothbrush, a little cash Mama left behind, and the small picture I had of her. Then, barefoot and shaking, I opened the front door and stepped into the night. But as I walked toward the road, a truck's headlights appeared out of nowhere. And it stopped right in front of me. The truck's headlights burned into my eyes like two suns. I froze. The engine hummed loud in the night air. My feet were bare. The gravel cut into my soles, but I didn't care. My heart beat so fast I thought it might explode. Then the driver's door opened. A tall figure stepped out. My body tensed. Who's there? A deep voice called. I took a slow step back, ready to run. But then I saw him clearly. It was Mr. Jenkins. The old farmer who lived 3 houses down. He squinted at me, then gasped. Is that you, Ruthie? I nodded slowly. Yes, sir. He stepped closer, his voice gentle now. What are you doing out here all alone? It's nearly midnight. And you're barefoot. Tears filled my eyes, but I held them back. I have to go, I whispered. He looked at my belly. You're pregnant? I nodded again, shame washing over me like cold water. He glanced around, then looked back at me. Did your father do this? No, sir, I said quickly. It was James, my brother. He didn't speak for a moment. Just stood there, shocked. Then he opened the passenger door. Get in. I hesitated. My body trembled. I'm not taking you back to that house, he said firmly. I'm taking you somewhere safe. That's when I broke down. I climbed into the truck, curled up like a ball, and cried harder than I ever had. Mr. Jenkins didn't say anything. He just drove. Soft country music played on the radio. And for the first time in years, I felt a tiny drop of hope. We drove for about 30 minutes, deep into the backroads, until we reached a small white house with flowers on the porch and a soft yellow light in the window. This is my sister's place, he said. Her name's Margaret. She used to be a nurse. She'll know what to do. He walked up and knocked gently. The door opened, and a woman in a robe peeked out. Her eyes widened when she saw me. Oh dear Lord, she said. Bring her in, quick. Margaret didn't ask too many questions. She took one look at me, my bruises, my swollen belly, my empty eyes, and pulled me into her arms like I was her own child. That night, she cleaned my cuts, fed me soup, and tucked me into a real bed with clean sheets and soft pillows. I hadn't felt anything that soft in years. And when she turned off the light, I whispered, "Thank you." For the first time in forever, I slept without fear. Days turned into weeks. Margaret told me I could stay as long as I needed. She didn't push me to talk. She just let me be. I helped her around the house, watering plants, folding laundry, even learning how to cook a little. The air smelled like fresh bread and lavender. She gave me my first doctor's visit. The baby was healthy. A girl. I cried when I saw her on the screen. Something in me woke up that day. A strength I didn't know I had. I decided I would name her Hope. Because that's what she was. My little light in all that darkness. But life wasn't done testing me. One afternoon, as I was sitting on the porch folding baby clothes, Margaret stepped outside holding a newspaper. Her face was pale. "Ruthie," she said carefully. "I need to show you something." She handed me the paper. Right there, on the front page. Missing girl found safe after escaping family abuse, police investigate claims. My name was in the article. So was my father's. And James. They said I had run away. That I was confused. That I was troubled. They even claimed that I had been lying to hurt my brother's reputation. The article said the family was devastated and concerned for my mental health. I dropped the paper and started to shake. "They're trying to make it look like it's all my fault," I whispered. Again. Margaret nodded, her jaw tight. "People like that always do. But the truth is stronger than their lies." Just then, her phone rang. She picked it up, listened for a moment, then held the phone out to me. "It's a detective. He wants to talk to you." My stomach dropped. I took the phone with shaking hands. "Hello?" "Ruth Thompson," a calm male voice said. "This is Detective Harris from County Services. I've been assigned to your case. I'd like to speak with you in person, somewhere safe." My voice cracked. "Are you going to send me back?" "No, ma'am," he said. "My job is to protect you. And your baby. I just want the truth. Will you meet me?" I looked at Margaret. She gave me a warm nod. "Yes," I said. "I'll meet you." We met the next day at a small diner in town. Margaret came with me. Detective Harris was kind. Patient. He didn't rush me. He listened, really listened, as I told him everything. From the first time James came into my room, to the night Daddy beat me, to the moment I ran barefoot into the road. I cried through most of it. He took notes quietly. When I finished, he looked me in the eyes and said, "You're brave, Ruthie. You didn't deserve any of this. And I believe you." I burst into tears again. Because that was the first time any adult had ever said those words to me. He promised me they would investigate. That I wouldn't have to go back. That he'd make sure James and my father couldn't hurt me anymore. But that night, just when I thought things were starting to get better, we got another knock on the door. Margaret opened it. And there he was. My father. He stood in the doorway, his face twisted in rage. His fists clenched. "I want my daughter back," he growled. "And I want that baby gone." I gasped and stepped back. Margaret blocked the door with her arms. "Get off my porch, John. She's my child," he roared. "She belongs to me." "No, I don't," I said from behind her. "Not anymore." His eyes locked with mine. And in that moment, I saw it. The same fury that beat me. The same cold that ignored my cries. The same evil that let James destroy me. He reached into his coat. And that's when I saw something shiny in his hand. The object glinted in his hand, silver, smooth, and terrifying. A gun. I froze. Margaret moved fast, slamming the door and locking it tight. "Call the police," she yelled. "Now." My hand shook as I reached for the phone. My breath caught in my throat. I could barely speak. "He has a gun," I whispered into the phone. He's here. He's going to kill me. The operator kept me calm while dispatching officers. Outside, my father pounded on the door like a madman. "Open this door, Ruthie," he screamed. "You think you can ruin this family and walk away? You're mine. You belong to me." His voice was full of fire and madness, but this time, I wasn't that little girl anymore. I stood back from the door and stared at it with a different kind of fear, one that didn't make me run, but one that made me plant my feet. I whispered, "No. I belong to me." Within minutes, red and blue lights flashed outside the window. Sirens howled in the distance, growing louder by the second. My father's banging stopped. I peeked through the curtains and saw him standing still, the gun now hidden behind his back. He looked left, then right, like a man trying to calculate his escape. But there was no running this time. The police swarmed him. "Drop the weapon," one officer shouted. My father didn't move. Now, another barked. "Hands in the air." Slowly, he dropped the gun. They threw him to the ground, cuffed his hands behind his back, and dragged him to the squad car. As they pushed him into the back seat, he turned his head toward the house, locking eyes with me through the window. And for the first time ever, I didn't feel afraid. I felt free. The police took statements. Detective Harris came back and assured me my father would be charged, not just for the attempted attack, but for years of child abuse, negligence, and covering up my brother's crimes. "I've already reopened James' case too," he said. "There's no more hiding for him." I didn't say much. I just nodded, wrapping my arms around my belly. I knew it wasn't over. But for once, it felt like the world was beginning to listen. Weeks passed. Margaret took me to counseling sessions, and I slowly began talking to a trauma therapist. The sessions were hard, like digging up broken glass from under my skin. But little by little, I began to speak again. To feel again. To heal. I would sit by the window every morning, sipping warm tea and journaling about my pain, my baby, and my dreams for the future. Sometimes I wrote letters to Mama. I told her everything. How her little girl had survived. How I still remembered her soft hands and bedtime stories. And how I was going to make sure her granddaughter grew up safe. One morning, Margaret came to my room, her face unreadable. "There's something you need to see," she said gently. She handed me a letter, no return address. Just my name in messy handwriting. I opened it slowly, my heart pounding. It was from James. "Ruthie. I know you hate me. I deserve it. I've done awful things. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve to be called your brother. I don't know what was wrong with me. Maybe I was sick. Maybe I just turned into someone evil. But I'm turning myself in. I can't live with what I did. Every night I see your face in my dreams. I see the fear. The pain. And now, I'm going to face it. I don't want to live like a ghost anymore. I'm sorry. For everything. James." I read the letter 3 times before I set it down. Margaret sat beside me. "What do you want to do with it?" "I don't know," I said. "It doesn't fix anything. But does it help?" I looked at her, then out the window where the trees swayed gently in the wind. "Maybe," I whispered. "Maybe just a little." Later that day, I went for a short walk down the quiet country road. My belly was big now. Hope kicked inside me often. I rubbed her gently and whispered to her. "Mommy's okay," I said. "You're safe now." A soft breeze passed through the trees. The sun peeked from behind the clouds. And I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. But that peace was short-lived. Because when I returned to the house, Margaret was standing on the porch, her face pale again. "What is it?" I asked, heart racing. She held up her phone. "I just got a call from the police." I froze. "Your father," she said quietly. He escaped custody during a prison transfer. My knees buckled. I grabbed the railing for support. Escaped? I whispered. How? When? This morning. They said it happened fast. He attacked a guard, stole his keys, and ran into the woods. They're searching for him. My blood turned to ice. I looked over my shoulder, at the trees, the road, the open spaces. He could be anywhere. I need to get you out of here, Margaret said. No, I replied, my voice low. If he's coming, then I won't hide this time. Margaret looked alarmed. Ruthie. I'm not running anymore, I said. I'm not that scared, little girl. She stepped closer. You have a baby now. You have something precious to protect. I know, I whispered, placing my hand on my belly. And that's why. I need to be brave. That night, we locked every door. Every window. We slept in shifts. Margaret kept her phone nearby. So did I. But as the clock ticked past midnight, something told me. He wasn't far. The wind howled louder that night. And just as I began to doze off, I heard the back door creak open. The creak of the back door was soft, almost like a whisper. But in the silence of the night, it echoed through the house like a scream. My eyes flew open. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I just listened. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Then, another sound. A slow footstep on the kitchen floor. I sat up slowly, heart hammering like a drum. My hand instinctively went to my belly. Hope kicked. She could feel it too. I reached for my phone. No signal. Margaret was sleeping in the room next to mine. I tiptoed to her door and tapped gently. She stirred. I whispered, he's here. She sat up fast, fully awake now. What? I heard the back door. Someone's in the house. Her face went pale. She reached for the drawer beside her bed and pulled out a heavy flashlight. It wasn't much, but it was something. We moved quietly through the hallway, every step careful. Then we heard it. The slow turning of the living room doorknob. Margaret looked at me and nodded toward the closet. I shook my head. I'm not hiding. You have to. For the baby. No. We both go. Or neither of us does. She understood then. I was no longer that helpless girl. I was a mother now. A protector. We stepped into the living room together. And there he was. My father. Standing in the dark. Dirty. Wild. His shirt was torn. His beard was longer. His eyes were empty, but burning. Ruthie, he rasped. Margaret raised the flashlight and pointed it at him like a weapon. Get out of this house. Right now. He ignored her. His eyes were only on me. I just wanted to talk, he said softly. You came with a gun last time, I said. You don't get to talk anymore. He took a step closer. I didn't mean to scare you. You didn't scare me, I said, voice firm. You broke me. He flinched like I'd slapped him. You lied, he said. You turned the world against me. I told the truth, I snapped. You chose not to see it. You protected the wrong child. I didn't know. You didn't want to know. Silence. Then he dropped to his knees. Right there on the floor. And began to cry. I lost everything, he sobbed. Your mother, even James is gone now. I wanted to feel sorry for him. But I didn't. I only felt tired. You didn't lose us, I said. You threw us away. He looked up. Can you ever forgive me? No, I said. Because you never protected me. Margaret stepped forward. The police are on their way. You need to leave. Now. But he didn't move. Instead, he reached into his jacket pocket. Margaret raised the flashlight higher. Don't you dare. He pulled out a crumpled photo. Of Mama. I kept this all these years, he whispered. I see her in you, Ruthie. Every day. My lips trembled. Because in that one broken moment, I saw it too, my father. Not the monster, not the abuser, but the weak, lost man he'd become. Still, it didn't change the past. Seeing her in me, I said, should have made you protect me. Not punish me. He broke down completely then, weeping into his hands. And just as the red and blue lights lit up the windows again, he whispered. I deserve to die. I looked at him, my father, the man who raised me with fists and silence. And I said the one thing I knew was true. No. You deserve to live, and remember everything you did. The police burst through the door. Guns raised. Shouting. Orders. But I didn't move. I just stood there as they cuffed him, dragged him away, and shut the door behind them. Margaret locked it quietly. Then she turned to me, eyes filled with tears. You were so brave. I nodded. But my knees buckled. And for the first time since it all began, I sobbed, deep, shaking cries that came from the place in me I'd buried for years. Margaret held me, rocking me gently. You're safe now, she whispered. You're safe. The next morning, I sat in the backyard wrapped in a blanket. The sun rose slowly, painting the sky pink and gold. And I whispered to my baby, you'll never know that pain. I promise you that. I felt her kick, strong and sure. And I smiled through the tears. But just as I stood up to go back inside, Margaret came running from the front yard, holding a piece of paper. Ruthie, she shouted. You need to see this. I took it with trembling hands. It was a legal notice. A court summons. From James. He was trying to claim parental rights. I stared at the letter in my hands. Every word on that page felt like a fresh wound. James Thompson is requesting legal parental rights over the unborn child. My fingers trembled. Margaret reached out gently, placing a hand on my shoulder. He has no chance. No judge in the world would allow this. But he's trying, I whispered. He's trying to steal the one thing that gives me hope, my baby. I sat down on the porch step, too weak to stand. James, after all he had done, still believed he had the right to anything in my life. It felt like the past was clawing its way back in. Margaret knelt in front of me. Listen to me, Ruthie. He can file 100 papers, but you have people now. People who believe you. That baby is yours, and no one will take her from you. I nodded, but my mind was spinning. Why was James doing this? Was it guilt? Control? A way to hurt me again? I didn't know. All I knew was that I had to fight. For hope. That week, I met with a lawyer through a survivors advocacy group. Her name was Natalie, sharp eyes, sharp mind, soft heart. She listened carefully, reading the court document with a frown. Don't worry, she said, flipping through the papers. There's no way a man accused of incest, abuse, and rape will get parental rights. He doesn't even have standing in this case. But he's still trying, I said. He wants to scare me. And that, she said, is why we'll crush him legally. Intimidation tactics won't work anymore. Not on you. We filed a protective order. The court fast-tracked the hearing. Natalie told me I'd have to speak, but I didn't hesitate. I was done being silent. I was done letting them win. The day of the court hearing, I wore a blue dress and held Margaret's hand the whole time. I was nearly 8 months pregnant. My feet were swollen. My back ached. But my spirit stood tall. James sat across the room in a suit, clean-shaven, trying to look innocent. But nothing could hide the truth in his eyes. He looked at me once. And I stared back like fire. When the judge asked me to speak, I stood slowly and cleared my throat. "My name is Ruth Thompson," I said. "I'm 19 years old. And the man sitting over there is not just my brother. He is my abuser." Gasps echoed in the courtroom. "He forced himself on me for years. He told me no one would believe me. And for a long time, no one did. But now, I have a voice. And I'm using it." I turned to the judge. "This baby is the result of something dark. But she is my light. James doesn't want rights. He wants control. And I refuse to let him have it." The judge nodded slowly. Then turned to James. He didn't speak. Didn't even try to defend himself. I think he knew it was over. The judge ruled in my favor. Full custody. Permanent restraining order. All contact forbidden. James was escorted out in cuffs, his trial for abuse still pending. But I didn't watch him go. I closed my eyes and whispered a prayer. Not for him. But for me. And for hope. A few weeks later, under the golden light of a summer morning, my water broke. Margaret rushed me to the hospital. The labor was long. Painful. Every contraction brought tears. But when I heard that first cry, the world went quiet. The nurse placed her in my arms. Tiny. Red. Breathing softly. She opened her eyes and blinked at me. And in that moment, I knew. I had won. I had broken the cycle. She would never know the hands that hurt me. She would never feel the silence I was buried in. She would only know love. Warmth. Safety. I named her Hope Eleanor Thompson. Hope, because she saved me. Eleanor, after my mother. Now, years have passed. Hope is 5. She has my eyes and her grandmother's laugh. She runs through the house like a beam of sunshine, asking endless questions, drawing on the walls, singing in the bathtub. She doesn't know the darkness she came from. Because I never let it touch her. We live in a quiet town now. Margaret is still with us. She became more than a guardian. She's family. Sometimes, I sit on the porch while Hope plays in the yard. I watch the breeze move through the trees. I hear her giggles. And I remember everything I survived. Every hit. Every scream. Every night I prayed to disappear. But I didn't disappear. I rose. I fought. I survived. And I became more than a victim. I became a mother. A protector. A warrior. And when people ask me how I made it, I say, my brother abused me for years, but the worst pain came from my father's hand. And even then, I lived. Because pain doesn't define you. What you do after does.